Actually, no, it won't. Maybe it will.
I want to... Oh, there it goes.
Hey, there's people on there.
Is there?
Mm-hmm.
I want a Jordan Peterson...
Yeah, I just got an alert.
You got the alert? Cool.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for mine to come in.
Jordan Peterson podcast hat. I want to be a Merlin hat.
I forgot my hat and my
Like,
glasses
that's
this
like
week.
this.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even say anything. I didn't notice.
Yeah, you know what's weird is I told Laura I forgot the AC adapter, but I forgot to tell her the hat and the glasses. I guess I really didn't want to wear it.
Paper bag.
The paper bags in it. It was funny because I had all the equipment packed up when we left.
Yeah.
Didn't touch it all week, so it was all packed ready to go there. I was like, you should
Did the
just
same
left it
thing.
down here.
Yeah. It was all in my car.
The thing we really want to do is develop our voice. You know, like that's the main thing, right?
What's wrong with my voice?
I mean, our persona, voice. You know how we, because you're saying your glasses, your hat, like so many people focus on the look and whatever, but it's really just kind of developing that openness and sincerity with the audience, the authenticity that they connect with, and
yeah, it's kind of the opposite of that. I don't know. I just something I wanted to try, and I don't know.
It's fine. I mean, who knows? It could be glasses and a hat, but like that. But that's what we want to develop. That's the real thing. That's the real thing we're trying to develop here, right? Is our voice. Our online persona, our way of connect. If we're doing a podcast, we don't want to just be here like.
To me, I'd rather favor the intellectual honesty than developing a persona, so to speak.
Well, it's that through which you convey your. It's the same thing, really, in the real world, right? Like. The who you are might not relate well to other people, so you're either going to change or not change. And that if you decide to change, growth mindset, you're changing your persona.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, it's just like, I guess if I could recognize the ugly parts of me, then if I needed to put on a mask for society, then I could do that. But I don't know.
It's not a mask for society, though. It's just like it's just growth mindset, right? Well,
obviously the bad parts of your behavior, so to speak, you want to cut out anyways, right? Whether it's...
Yeah.
So, I don't know, it's hard to integrate, your true self with socially acceptable. Maybe it's not that hard.
Well,
because you get shamed and bullied if you're not in the social norms. So.
Well, that's kind of the point of all this, right? Is that we're supposed to be in the social norms. You're supposed to find who you authentically are within the social norms. Because if who you think you authentically are is outside of the social norms, you're probably going to end up on a psychoanalyst couch, informing their next book about rules for life.
I just feel weird, and I definitely know I think different than others. So.
Yeah, but that's what we want to do is figure out how to think different with others.
Yeah.
Right.
Nice. Exactly.
Yeah. I'm not talking about changing who we are. I'm talking about just changing how we relate, like getting better at relating. I don't know.
All right, so it's 9:02 now. I guess we should get this officially started here.
Yeah, we'll stop boring our audience with hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Dallas, and I'm here with
Garrett
and Ryan.
And tonight, as you guys may know from our previous podcast, we are discussing, every night we're discussing Jordan B. Peterson, the 12 Rules for Life. But tonight specifically, we're going to be working on rule number 1. But before we get into that, I wanted to just take a minute to talk about the meeting we had this week. You see, this podcast is connected with a meetup over the Jordan Peterson material. And we're using this as sort of a furthering of what we learn, another chance for us to get to practice, to get to learn, to get to grow, and hopefully maybe helping you guys learn and grow. So I just wanted to talk for a minute about what we went over this last week, talking about Rule 1 in our meetup. And two I think, really interesting things emerged. And one was we were kind of trying to figure out what name to call, what might be another name to call Rule 1. And it led to a really interesting discussion about values and virtues and different things like that kind of is the second thing we talked about, which was trying to create a hierarchy on which we could arrange these different values and different aspects. They really started to, we were trying to create like an all-encompassing hierarchy that had everything on it. And I think one of the things we really learned is that is a lot harder than, I don't know, we thought it would be, or maybe we thought it would be hard, but we tried it and we confirmed that it was hard. So tonight we're going to be getting into Rule 1 again. I don't know if we're necessarily going to go down those paths, but Rule 1 was about lobsters. That's the common thing people focus on. But I think what Peterson was talking about was the structure of brains and the structure of life, and how life is distributed, whether through Price's law or the Pareto distribution. He was talking about how even, the most basic of creatures already have I took this sentence I took all these sentences out of the chapter, but it's that they have the structure and neurochemistry necessary to process information about status in society and what that might mean for us, and that there might be a primordial calculator wired within us kind of keeping count of these things. And even if we disregard them, there's still a part of us that is holding a regard for that. So it might behoove us to sort of pay attention to that. He also says that the body with its various parts need to function like a well-rehearsed orchestra. Every system must play its role properly and exactly the right time, or noise and chaos ensue. And talking about how biological creatures these are some rules that I think biological creatures function under. And he goes on to say that it is for this reason that routine is so necessary. The acts of life we repeat every day need to be automatized. They must be turned into stable and reliable habits, so they lose their complexity and gain predictability and simplicity. And why that is important, and how a hierarchy can help us to do that. But I think he really makes his point when he says, and this will be the final quote here from the chapter, but he says, "So attend carefully to your posture, quit drooping and hunching around, speak your mind, put your desires forward as if you had a right to them, at least the same right as others. Walk tall and gaze forthrightly ahead. Dare to be dangerous. Encourage the serotonin to flow plentifully through the neural pathways, desperate for its calming influence." And there's a lot in Rule 1, as in every rule. Those are kind of I think some of the highlights I took from it. But that's what we want to talk about, and let's just jump right into it. So first off, let me turn to Garrett, and I'm wondering, what was your big takeaway from Rule 1? What did you think about when you went through this rule?
Yeah, my big takeaway really was, okay, stand up straight. It's really, really a physical thing that you can do really, really easily if you try. So try, and possibly that's going to lead to a lot of positive personal development, and hopefully that starts a positive sort of feedback loop. So just by the simple act of sitting up straight, which I'm hunched over already, and we just started. Standing up straight. You go for walking around in the world, can kind of display to others your competence. And people when they're around competent people can sometimes rise. They can raise their own level of competency. And so maybe by making yourself at least appear more competent, you can others will believe in you to believe that you are more competent, and maybe themselves be more competent. And maybe you can start a positive feedback loop with others. Maybe you can get the serotonin flowing with everybody all at once, and they can help you and you help them, and it can turn into a cycle for you. This one was really, from my standpoint, really about the physical, like kind of just about the stand up straight, clean your room, all that stuff that you hear all the quotes, the lobster dominancy, the serotonin flowing, and that it's something that everyone can do, but everyone has to do for themselves. It has to be inwardly motivated. It has the power to make other people want to be better, you wanting to be, me wanting to be better, me wanting to present myself as competent and present myself as knowing my vulnerabilities too, right? So if you're competent, you know where your vulnerabilities are, and by standing up straight and by sort of projecting yourself, others may start doing the same. And it's a nonverbal thing. It's something that you can communicate before you even say hello to somebody. Mm-hmm. It gives somebody an initial impression of you that could then further steer your interaction with those people also. It's kind of where I'll start.
I'm hearing a lot of like for others, for leading others, for raising people up, being an example.
Right.
That's really interesting to me. Is that like kind of, because what you're saying about you got to really do it for yourself. It seems to me to kind of tend towards like lead yourself first, and then you can lead others. But I think that's really controversial. I
think so. I think by my inclusion of others so frequently, what I'm really hoping for, I think, is the positive feedback loop to take off. Is for, that I'm doing this for myself. I have it in mind that if I do this for myself and I feel better about myself and I project confidence, to others, that may spur them to do the same, and that may then spur somebody else to do the same, and that individually together we can create this positive feedback loop. So when I talk about others, influencing others, it's that I want others to also influence me, because if I project myself as competent, and then down the road I see somebody else and they're projecting themselves as competent, well, that makes me to also want to be competent, because you just typically kind of try to want to match somebody. I think it could start a positive feedback loop.
So you're saying it's interesting because, I don't think he talks expressly about that in Rule 1 in terms of creating that positive feedback loop or in others. I mean, no, that's my question.
Yeah.
Is how you see Rule 1 is really being tied to that society aspect, is really being like you want to create a positive feedback loop, and you're saying that part of that is projecting confidence. Is that kind of what you're saying? Like the first part of it is the physicality, projecting confidence.
Just the purely physical. But the physical standing up straight, I think, puts you in a certain mode or zone. I think that that helps the individual. So it by standing up straight, by projecting competence, by being perceived by others as being competent, that's where you start making yourself better, actually competent. Then you actually help yourself.
Where does that? So that's interesting. It's a good question. Where does that confidence start? Does it start with something that makes you stand up straight, or does standing up straight begin the process of confidence?
I think there's an argument he makes in the chapter that it's very physiological. So by making your shoulders back and your head straight, that it triggers something in your body. And I can't remember the example we talked about on Thursday in the group, but there was another physiological. I was smiling. If you put a pencil in your mouth, right?
Yeah.
And you smile, it's going to physiologically change how your body feels and everything. And it doesn't. You don't have to. The pencil was the interesting thing because you don't have to force the smile yourself. You just by moving those muscles physically, you can actually change it. And I believe they said there was a scientific study, or that was scientifically backed, that they brought up in the group. So there is definitely proof that how we present our body can affect our brain chemistry, or at least how we feel consciously.
I think another example was prayer, the physical act of getting on your knees and putting you in sort of a zone or a mode of this is what I'm doing. This is, of a physical action, putting your mind and your body into action too.
Helps you meditate, and it's like submission, almost like recognizing there's a higher power, and if you do that, then maybe you're more cognizant of your behavior because you're going to be judged by someone or something.
Possible.
Yeah, that's really interesting because people tend to really devout people tend to pray early, read their scriptures early, that kind of stuff. It's like they start their day, you're talking about the physicality of it, and I know that people that are tremendous athletes, more often than not, they start their day with a workout early. You know, then it carries them through the rest of their day. They say like there's these correlations, and I mean, so have you been doing anything anything like that, or?
Yeah, not so much. You know, I work a regular job, so I'm not like any kind of athlete or anything. But just on simple things during the day, I tried to keep this in mind. I really tried to, when I find myself slouching, I try to stand up straight. When I go for a fairly short morning walk to go get a cup of coffee, I really try to walk there and back with just the best posture that I possibly can, because it's before anybody else is in the office. I go to work, I go for a walk, and it starts my day off better. It's almost better than the coffee. I mean, it's not better than the coffee. I've got a serious caffeine problem, but
Who doesn't?
it's really helpful for my day. I can tell the days that I miss that, or the days that not so much the walk going to get coffee, but that I miss the intention of standing up straight and keeping in mind that I can project my competence and my confidence to others. It sets my day straight.
So then I would ask next then, like, what's the results? Like, have you noticed? Is there anything you've picked up on, or have you had an impact on someone else?
I don't know. There's not a whole lot of, going and getting a cup of coffee in that single event. There's not a whole lot of interaction with other people. It's a large company, and when I go, the person remembers exactly what I get every day, and it's like every single person behind the counter knows me and knows what I'm there to order, and like has it ready by the time the other person has ordered, and maybe it's because when I walk in, I walk in competently. I mean, we're just talking about a coffee shop. It's just such a small thing that I'm not sure I'd really know how to measure that, and how that would be any different from somebody slouching and being remembered equally.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting you say that too, because I find a lot of joy in being recognized at my various places of commerce too. Like I walk into a Mexican restaurant and they go, "You want your usual?" I find that very it's a small town. It's like it feels like you belong. So I have a McDonald's addiction problem, so I have McDonald's every morning. It's almost the same thing. All the people there know my order, and it makes your day a little better. It's kind of interesting you experience that too.
Yeah. You might not get that if you're always going to new places.
Well, I think it has to do with the scale. Like a metro, it'd be harder to, even if you went to the same place every day, there's just the chance of the staff being different depending how big the place is, and how many people they serve. When there's less people, obviously, better chance of getting to know you and how often you do it too.
How about this though? Do you guys ever do this? Because this kind of jives with the chapter too. But it's like, like if you go to the same place, you see that same person. Do you ever like think, posture and stuff? Do you ever think that like maybe if I'm just like really, like bright and shiny today, like from an enlightenment standpoint, not like washed and clean, but bright and shiny today, maybe I can give that a little bit. Because you're saying I don't know if I've had it affect anybody or whatnot, but maybe you have, just by being more upright and maybe trying. There's something about trying that makes you a little bit brighter, a little bit shinier, and maybe that's why you're more memorable. Maybe you are having a it's hard to put a value on, like it's hard to see the to see that in action. You kind of have to just know it's happening, but I think it is happening. That's my question to you guys. Do you guys think that happens?
Yeah, I mean, I hope so, and I think, I mean, you could even say, and it's a small town effect, there could be all kinds of things going on, but you could say that, okay, all these people, there's like, I don't know, 8 people now that just will hand me my order, and they're great, and I remember them, and I smile to them, and I say hello to them, and I feel like I feel competent and confident when I do what I do, but that seems like they are being more competent in their jobs now, right? Because instead of waiting for me to come to the ordering station and put in my order and type it in and then go and get it and then come back and then scan the phone, whatever, all the processes involved. Instead, it's I walk up, They hand it to me, I scan my app and say, have a great day, and walk away. And they're free to do other things in their job that are way more difficult, that require way more attention. So maybe they are becoming more competent by noticing the competence.
Yeah, you're like working with them.
Yeah.
Because there's probably you could think about there's probably some clients that work against them in terms of like, this isn't what I ordered, or like, I don't know what I want, or hold on my phone. But you're doing the opposite of that. You're working with them. They don't have to waste brain power on you. They can save it for something else.
Yeah. Maybe
Yeah.
not. I'll start looking out for that though, because I think that could be maybe part of what I'm missing from the positive feedback loop that I'm looking for, right? Is maybe I'm not searching out for that little thing, because until you brought that up, I wouldn't have really considered that. So maybe I'm not looking for those little things that then would make me want to do it in more places and maybe spread it more and make bigger impacts and bigger changes. So that's a good takeaway for me to look for that positive feedback loop starting, even if it's minuscule, even if it's really, really tiny.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I was thinking about it some more. It's like, why do I like that? And it's interesting because like corporations are kind of treating their low wage workers as like machines, right? They want it highly repeatable so they keep levels of quality up, and so it's a very mechanical process, right? And by having this one person recognize you in what's supposed to be a mechanical process, it feels very human, right? It brings human back to it. But the corollary of that is what you were just saying, is like it makes their job easier too. It lets them process us like a machine because it's so regular. It helps them because every human's order is so different or whatever. It's more chaos, so it actually makes their day more mechanical in some way. So it's kind of interesting dynamic, humans versus machines there.
Well, and that's kind of what we want. We want to be automatized, right? So that we can turn into stable and reliable habits, so that those things lose their complexity and gain predictability and simplicity, because that frees up. So even though it's more machine-like,
It's creating more order.
And it feels more human.
it does feel more human. Yeah.
It's win-win. I mean, they're doing more with their job, and we're doing more with our ordering. It's win-win.
Well, I think it ingratiates us to come back to that. You're not going to go to a different coffee place in the morning because this one knows your order, right? It builds loyalty, and so everyone gets something out of it. But it's definitely a tough thing to do, to know every single order. It's not an easy feat.
The big question I have is if you could do more.
Okay.
Like, I was thinking about when you go in there and you make your coffee order, I wonder if you could, like, we've kind of recognized this machine. We've seen that there's like a minor, positive feedback loop there. I wonder if there's more you could do.
I got something on that. In Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, I guess it was mainly kind of for sales, but one of the important things he gets across is there's nothing like really more important than knowing the other person's name and not forgetting it. I wouldn't say it's the most important, but it's near the top. So like you said, 8 different people that work there. So I think Garrett's already kind of take that to the next step of not only walking in there, but starting to get to know the people you interact with. And I mean, the first step is knowing their name. And I think when someone knows your name, that's just the beginning of a good relationship. And, can't hurt to have another friend in life. So. Yeah,
I mean, especially since they wear name tags, I should be able to nail that one. Right? But I do know. I know a couple of their names, and I asked them about their day and all that stuff.
You could take that further too, though, and you could maybe ask them, like, I'm always thinking about how we could use each other and accountability. And I was like, maybe you could go in there and you could find out, like, we could make you say, okay, their name is, like, let's say Lily, right? Maybe you got to find out, like, why their name Lily. Just try to inject a little.
One of my guys at McDonald's, we're waiting on an order, so we just start making small talk, and I found out he had he got the Widowmaker heart attack on Friday the 13th. He told me this great story of the heart attack, and that made the next level. That's just small conversation. Now I know this detail about this guy's life, and we just keep building on that small talk.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree, and I need to look for more.
But that's the question: is that good though? Is that the thing to do? Is that the more?
I don't see how it can hurt. I mean, I think I
can see how it could hurt.
Okay, go for it.
And so I would ask you guys, have you guys ever gotten to this kind of situation where it's like you've taken the time, you've done this, you've kind of developed a relationship with someone, but then it gets to the point where it's like awkward. It's like you've developed a relationship too much. It's like you have too good of a relationship, compared to like the status role, and does that ever happen? Or
I would say I have a hard time with that. I mean, the small talk is incredibly difficult to begin with. It's something you got to practice and get really good at, and I continually try to practice it. But I think you can have a lull, like you said, where it's uncomfortable silence, so to speak. But I think that's just like you said, a matter of getting better at small talk.
When I had a second to think about it, I was thinking the problem is that I've made small talk so well in places.
Probably way better than I am.
I'm like too good at small talk, right? And I've developed a relationship with someone in a place where I go regularly, and it's fine. But then all of a sudden I come in and I'm pressed for time, or like I'm in a bad mood and I don't make the small talk, and then all of a sudden it's somebody who isn't really, like they see the friendship as bigger, because so when you go into small talk, like you have to be careful, because some people are really hungry for friendship, and all of a sudden they're like, you're a good friend of mine, and I'm like, okay.
I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah, that feeling, like that's, I'm just saying that's a potential hazard.
Absolutely. I definitely can see that, where you're just trying to be nice to someone and they get really clingy, and you're like, whoa, there's an imbalance here.
Yeah.
I need to start distancing myself. But there's also, I think, the busy time where, like, I might be talking to Widowmaker guy at McDonald's, but all of a sudden, I'm busy on my phone, or I got to take care of a problem on my phone. I don't even talk to him that day,
Right.
So the busy thing definitely happens, but I think that happens in normal relationships, even with people that don't have power imbalances. That's separate than the power imbalance itself that I've also experienced.
And that I think about it too again.
Go for it.
But you know what? You can't figure out how to walk that line without first, like developing the relationship that's too bad.
Yeah, and you're not gonna.
That's too imbalanced.
And you just got to keep doing it till you get better at it. It's just awkward till you know how to make it not awkward, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's
so. Then that support. So I would agree with what you're saying. It can never hurt. So back to Garrett. You have to go make small talk with the people at your coffee.
Yeah, I mean, I think I will. I mean, in really, what I think I'll do is find the little things that I'm missing. I'll look for the little things that I'm missing.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I do want to take it to the next step of this rule number 1 of the stand up straight. I think I'm doing pretty well on literally standing up straight. And maybe I need to see the opportunities that I've missed. I need to seek out those opportunities that I've missed, and that's a really easy one to start with. So, yeah.
All right. Well, anything else that you want to bring up from Rule 1 before?
Yeah, that was a lot of my takeaway from it. I think that's all I got.
We do a quick little tech break.
Yeah, I was gonna.
I want to check on some things. I want to turn off my speakers back here.
What's going on up there? It looks like is it progressing or is?
It's skipping too, so I want to reload it. I don't know if it's the player or that, and I also want to.
I wonder if that's how our feed's going over.
Yeah, I should have put the laptop on Ethernet, but I forgot. Little intermission here, and then we can get.
We're going to take a quick moment for our sponsors. First of all, we're brought to you by Lobster Claws. Get one today for all your lobster. Whenever you need to show your dominance over somebody, bust out your lobster claw and lobster them near the face. We don't condone lobster clawing in the face, but give them a good.
That's the one.
Hey, I'm the top lobster around here. We're also brought to you by flannel shirts. Flannel.
Audio's good.
It's the new orange.
All right. I'm
Flannel
much
is
more
the new
comfortable now
orange.
with all the technical things I forgot before. Thank you for indulging me.
And finally, we're brought to you by Segments. We're brought to you. I was gonna say I can't remember that movie. We're brought to you by Human Centipede. The Human Centipede.
Yeah.
That's an obscure reference.
Yeah.
Is it 2010 in here?
Whoa! I'm the weird one, but you know what year that movie came out?
I'm old.
I mean, he's got a point.
I gotta have something to benchmark my life by. Movies are a pretty good metric of that.
Yeah, but that's the movie for 2010. You picked The Human Centipede.
No, I gotta look it up. I gotta see what year, see how close I came.
All right, it'll be.
It'll
We're,
be like
we're also
2012.
doing trivia challenges. So right now, everybody at home, go ahead and punch in the box.
2009.
What year.
Oh man.
Sorry, I didn't know you were doing the game show thing. It started glitching up there. I really hope the. Let me check it on my phone. Hopefully, it's just that
It looked
computer.
good on mine. I just checked it.
All right, cool.
Okay, so it's just glitching on yours.
It's just glitching on our monitor up there, and I forgot to full screen it. Oh, I could do that. Are we still in intermission?
Yeah.
We're always
Hey,
on
we got 5
intermission.
people watching. It's probably all also checking out on the phone, but
Yeah.
hello out there.
We have 5 people watching. How can you tell?
See the red 5 at the bottom there?
Oh, we've had. So what's the 17?
The 17 is how many views. That I think that's more of people that have ever tuned into your channel. We've had 17 unique people tune in, I guess, maybe.
17 unique people. This thing is taking off way faster than I thought it would.
Big time.
So 4. So it's probably my wife, your wife. I have it on in my pocket.
Yeah, exactly, right? That's 7 computers in this room.
If you're a unique person out there, why don't you go ahead and give us a 1 in the chat box? I don't know. I
You're
don't
just
even know
going to
how it
disappoint
works.
us. We're never going to see a 1 there. It's all bots. Oh, see, it's going down. Yeah,
Yeah, they're all leaving. Like, participation! Ah!
All right.
Looks like a 9 to me, so I'm just gonna go with 9 people.
Okay, I'm going to fix it.
No, I'm just kidding.
Sorry, I just...
All right, everyone. Well, welcome back. Tonight we're discussing Rule 1. Stand up straight with your shoulders back. Everyone, good posture. Thrusting out.
Do it now.
Oof.
Yes, we'll just edit that on the YouTube version.
Sounds good.
It's been so long since I did it. That's right. I am a lobster.
Shoulders back, head up.
I'm gonna do the rest of the meeting in my lobster.
Please
so, Ryan, what was your takeaway? What was your big takeaway from Rule 1?
Rule 1 was a lot about hierarchies to me. Showing that they are part of nature was important. And that I thought one of the more interesting statements was talking about how when lobsters challenge each other in battle, the losing lobster brain pretty much implodes and rewrites itself. I thought that was pretty freaking interesting, that it happens at like a biological level, that the result of a battle is and the loss is so great that they pretty much can't handle it till they rewire their brain. So I thought that was fascinating. And I don't know if he covers it in this chapter, but just in general, I know Peterson talks about hierarchies, about how you have to make sure hierarchies are in balance. Like you don't want too many disaffected people at the bottom and very few at the top. That's a very wide hierarchy, or the other type of hierarchies where it's just so many levels of administration or management between the top and the bottom. So there's maybe very few disaffected people, but it's just so tall.
Mm-hmm.
And you gotta beware of tyranny. The people at the top, or you want a tyrant at the top, basically.
So this subordinate brain concept, I found it really interesting too. Do you think that happens to humans?
Well, obviously, I don't think our brain rewires after that, but definitely, I know thinking about them, embarrassing moments and having to relive them, and like going them over, like a sore in your mouth, you're like kind of keep tonguing it over and over. It doesn't no good. It's just, it's like memory is a strange thing too. The more you relive something in your head, the more you rewrite what actually happened too.
Mm-hmm.
Which is another interesting phenomenon, but maybe not necessarily relative to this work. It's just something I've been hearing about all week.
Yeah, if you just look at it like in an exaggerated form, if you had just a replaying thought, like if you thought about...
Well, it's like this was a life unexamined is not worth living, so I think you got to at least examine it, see if there's anything to be learned, what you could be doing better, how you could improve. But there should be a limit on that, because the more you review it, the more it changes from what it really was, and it's kind of diminishing returns too. I think you can rewrite the situation so much that it's not actually reflects reality, and if you're not trying to be critical of yourself, you can just completely change what has happened and how you were right and the other person was wrong, so to speak, maybe. So you can hurt yourself as well if you review it too much.
But couldn't you also review it in a positive way and use it to reinforce. Like, for example, you might be like, your first thought might be like, I can't do this thing. But then you might go, oh, wait, what about this other thing I did? Yeah, I did that good. I can do this thing. You know?
Absolutely. Like I said, reflection on it's probably worth it. It's just it just needs to be balanced like everything else in life.
Yeah. That's right, balance. I mean, you know, the one thing I kind of hate that balance idea, because it's some people say that because it's true, but it's almost like so true that it's not even worth saying, because it's like, you know, so what's the balance? Yeah. So what's the balance? Have you figured it out, or what do you? I don't have any clue.
I think
I'm all off balance.
A lot of things that Jordan Peterson says is things we already know, and that's why it really resonates with a lot of his audience is because it's just them going over stuff they already know. And so the purpose of that, why would you buy a book of something you already know? It's because you need to remind yourself, right? These are the important things that you need to keep remembering, and I think it is easy to forget about everything in balance. Like, too much water can kill you, so there's definitely, a limit on how much water you should drink. That's one of my favorite examples of balance.
But that reminds me of something you said earlier when you were talking about going over the material too much. But maybe.
Well, that was a memory because it shifts the material.
No. I'm sorry. Earlier, before we were even recording, let me give some more reference here. You were talking about, we got to be careful going over the sections too much, like Rule 1, because we might become redundant. What were you saying?
Oh, I
think
we
were talking about.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I was saying that a lot of our conversations, I noticed the group, at least, and some of it's my fault, is I'll see the same pattern and we'll end up in the same discussions. Like, hierarchies are something Peterson talks a lot, so we always bring it up. And like the conversation I remember we had on Thursday was talking about, the relationship between God and Christ and hierarchies. Is LeBron's James a God? And if you have this concept of God, you take the calculus on that. There's got to be a God of gods, right? So, and that's where you get the thing, and that could be Christ, like the perfect being. And it's just like we've had that conversation, maybe not in that way, but we've had a similar conversation about maybe there is some type of figure that is like God in concept, that represents the top of all hierarchies. And for new members, obviously it might be the first time they've heard it, but it's something we keep touching on. And like, because we have such a limited time every week, we have to really assess the value. And it's more of a process type thing than it is like in the material, so to speak. But I was just kind of wondering, like, if we should start developing shorthands for certain conversations, but maybe that'll just naturally, organically happen over time. But it's just, it's a time management thing where it's like, how many times are we going to have the hierarchy discussion about certain parts of the hierarchy, but still doing it enough so we can leave room for new ideas and thoughts, but still doing it at the point where we don't bore the existing members. Like, I'm not going to go back. All we ever talk about is the same three things. If we distill it down that thing, I guess there's value if we get to the point where there's only three things. But at the same time, it's like you don't want the meetings to get predictable.
I heard an interesting distinction in there between maybe ideas and principles. Like the God of gods is kind of like an idea. It's like we're talking about hierarchies and stuff, but maybe the principle is the hierarchy itself. And maybe because that'd be an interesting distinction, because maybe you can't go over principles too much, but because the principles are what reminds you of what's good, right? That's where you have that. That's what brings you into balance. Like, I think that's what you're saying. But maybe the ideas, we shouldn't rehash the same ideas over and over unless they're really good. Because ideas turn into...
If there's something new, and like I said, it's all about reminding ourselves too, so maybe it's time we're spent. It's kind of something we're exploring.
Yeah, that's true. So then back to the subordinates brain. I'm not sure how we got to there from the subordinates brain. But I was really interested to hear what you said about, because I think that maybe it does rewire. I wonder what you think about rewiring.
Well, this was talking about it like on a chemical level. There was like physical changes you could actually measure, where our brains are, I guess, a lot more complex. So, and I think from losing a battle, and obviously a lobster battle when they're tearing each other's eyes off. I mean, humans don't really, very few humans kind of kick it to that level. And who knows, we haven't really done the studies on, you don't have like the research lab right at the edge of the battlefield ready to go. So I can't can't say we don't know that for sure, but I would hunch to say our current science believes that our brain chemistry isn't that radically different after a subdued loss. At least that's where I throw the dice on our current understanding. But who knows? Like I said, if I could find out later that we have the same process as lobster, we just never knew about it before.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, where do you weigh in on this in terms of the rewiring of the brain?
It's probably not not a lobster neuroscientist. I think.
Well, I am.
I think it's possible that you like what would be a big defeat for a human would be your first love lost or something like that, right? Something that's really memorable. Well, maybe that fires up different pathways. Maybe that blocks off different pathways. Maybe it doesn't chemically restructure your entire brain, but it's got some impact on the way you think in the future. So that the next time that you fall in love, you have this memory, more than a memory, right? Because memories get overridden the more you remember them. Maybe it actually changes the pathways. Maybe you now are just more likely to think of relationships in a different way than you were before, which I think feels right to me. I mean,
as you say that, it makes me think about the conscious aspect of it, because a lobster is just roaming around on the bottom of the ocean. Like the lobster's not taking in.
It's very instinctual.
Yeah. But we're sort of apart from our instincts. But maybe not, actually. Maybe.
I think I know what you're saying. It's like
what am I saying? Yeah.
it's like we're more self-aware than a lobster.
Yeah.
So it's hard to prove that a lobster is conscious. We don't know if it's just a really basic bioorganic computer, so to speak. That do you need to have a certain level of intelligence before you start thinking about higher concepts, so to speak?
Oh yeah, so let's flip it around. Like, do you think that humans are capable of what's the opposite of a subordinate brain? Like, are we capable of rewiring our brain in a positive way?
Yeah, and I think, obviously, I think Garrett said as we can reflect on a situation and change our behavior, so there's changes, and those changes might have some type of chemical effect on the brain. I just don't know. But what was your question again? Sorry, I completely lost it.
Yeah, but how can we... Did you think it's possible that we can rewire our brain like the opposite of a subordinate brain?
Yeah.
What if we had a medium brain? Because if it's possible to become subordinate, is it also possible to become superordinate?
Well, I think we have different brains. The left and the right. We have the conscious and the unconscious. There's definitely multiple aspects to how we perceive the world and interact with it.
It feels like a stack. Like you've got the the instinctual lobster brain and all the mechanisms that come along with that. Maybe not all of them, but some of the mechanisms that come along with that. Then you have kind of like an emotional brain, and then you have your higher logic kind of brain, and it's
there's
just more of a stack.
Yeah, how would you tell? Because, actually, when I think about it, a subordinate brain would be someone who's more prone to depression and anxiety, perhaps. So maybe, if you had less of that, or if you had the opposite of that, maybe you have a superordinate brain.
Well, and to go back a little bit about if you got in the feedback loop, can you actually rewire your brain, so to speak? And I think there's definite evidence, if you try to, Peterson talks about, find the good things in life, you try to focus on those when you can, you're going to enter one of these feedback loops where you can hopefully, as long as you're trying to do that, you'll see more positive things, and then because of that, you're looking for them, you develop your perception of finding them, and it becomes easier in some ways, and by surrounding your head in a bunch of positive things, you're less likely to maybe be depressed about them, where, obviously if you focus on negative things, you start seeing more negative things, and it pulls you down the other direction. But at the same time, you have to be worried or you have to at least stress that there is chemically imbalanced brains, like someone who's chemically depressed, just thinking happy thoughts isn't going to do it. You're going to need medication for that. So I think there's a balance if your brain's healthy, and definitely healthy brains can rewire certain behaviors. Though chemically depressed are probably going to have a much harder time than normal.
That's true.
Non-chemically depressed brains, I don't want to say normal.
And now think about it, we're entering a very controversial area because this is where, like, some people think, like Bob Marley, he thought he could heal himself. He thought he could heal his toe. Steve Jobs.
Yeah, another one.
Same thing, right?
Positive mental attitude. I'll get rid of this cancer.
Right, and then they don't. Because then there's people out there, with serious, like, hormonal, imbalance or something like that, and they have this sort of depression that, that it's not appropriate to go to. That's not fair. So it's real controversial because then it's like, to what extent? This is the question. To what extent are we capable of wiring our brain?
I know that Peterson's talking about one of his talks. He was talking about how the right wing people like to say, well, just all these poor people, why don't they just work harder? It's very easy to just to say it's why don't you just try harder? And I think it's very dangerous just to assume that. I think to have a higher resolution view of the world, you really got to acknowledge that not everyone is in a place that can do that. And I think you get a much better picture. You can recognize not everyone can just think their way out of things or think whether. So as long as you keep that in mind, you have a better high resolution image of the world to deal with and help improve it.
While we're talking about that, speaking of, you mentioned one of the things we talk about in this chapter a lot is hierarchical imbalances, and we do talk about that in the group. And I don't really understand that. Like, what are we talking about when we talk about that?
So, if someone at the top is like, maybe you could say one thing could be class, like top 1%ers that have all the money, right? That could be a hierarchy of wealth, so to speak. If the hierarchy is really wide, right, that means there's a lot of people that don't have wealth at the very bottom of the hierarchy. Mm-hmm. So there's more people without wealth than the few that do. But just because it's a tree, that's going to be the more. But it's how much more. Like a balanced hierarchy might be at 50%, where an imbalanced hierarchy might be at like 99.99999.
Yeah.
So a really wide pyramid means there are too many disaffected people and too few at the top and too many at the bottom.
So then the discussion is kind of about what's a healthy hierarchy.
Well, it's our job. I think he talks about in this chapter. It's our job to make sure the hierarchy stays balanced. Like keep an eye on it. Like you can't ignore the hierarchy. You got to pay attention because you got to know where you are in it, right, and who's below, who's above. And so that you can focus on improve yourself and move that one step up. But also, if the hierarchy is in balance, if you have all these people at the bottom of a wide hierarchy, it's not going to stay that wide because all these people have a reason to upset the hierarchy. Mm-hmm. And when you destroy the hierarchy, well, a new one fills its place. Hopefully it'll be more balanced. And he talks a lot about chimps and their societies and cultures in this chapter. And when the hierarchy gets imbalanced, how chaos and revolution happens. And hey, can see crosshairs on the screen. Is that for everybody? Yes, it is. That's Laura. Okay. Sorry. I got excited. But the other type of imbalance besides being too wide is too tall, where there is so many people that are so distant from the people at the bottom that they're also not represented, so to speak. They might have more wealth. Their wealth is more equally distributed, so to speak, but
it would be like
it's just so tall. Yeah, that the
more it's top than the skinnier it gets.
You don't have to be at the bottom to have a problem. You could be 3 rungs down and have problems, and that need to be addressed in society. So it's having too many layers between the people that are making the decisions and the actual problems.
Right.
It's also an imbalanced hierarchy. He doesn't say that explicitly, but I think he's said that a little bit in a specific talk. And it's hard for me to remember where the tyranny, when a hierarchy gets tyrannical. I think that's probably when like one person's controlling too much, and that might be the narrow thing. I'm not really sure.
Really wonky.
Because you bring back the God discussion of he's maybe the figure that's atop of all these imagined hierarchies or these theoretical hierarchies. I mean, he doesn't necessarily really exist, but there's this figurehead we can talk about. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the society hierarchy we live has a single person at the top, though you could have one ruler over them all. So.
Mm-hmm. I think the trouble I have with it is because when we talk about it like this, I think about nature informing, sort of our lives, and I think about when I was a kid in school, they taught us about what was it? It's like rabbits and wolves, right? It's like when the number of rabbits goes up, then the number of wolves goes up, but then as the number of wolves goes up, the number of rabbits goes down, and then as the number of rabbits go down, the number of wolves go down.
Ecosystems.
And then, which is
does
that food chain?
That's like balance too.
Is it the food? Yeah, balance. You guys remember that?
But
I don't know what that concept's
yeah,
called.
the food chain is like a hierarchy, right?
Yeah.
One eats the other, and but the how you play it over time is really can affect it.
Well, so that's what I'm wondering is, and maybe this is where I disagree with Peterson, if this is what he's saying. But it's like, isn't like when they try to like reintroduce wolves, or they try to preserve a species that's going extinct, or something. Like, doesn't it always like mess things up? Or it's like when people bring a snake in Florida into their home and then they let it go, and then all of a sudden now there's stakes because there's no predators, or like
you can take a boat in China and you suck the water into the boat to help it float or whatever, and then when you get to San Francisco and you let the water out, you've all of a sudden like took all these microbacteria from China and released it into our ecosystem here in the Bay Area.
Yeah,
that changes the ecosystem there greatly. So even something as simple as moving water across an ocean causes huge thing. I have a friend that's an ocean biologist that rants and raves about that, and that's why they're trying to regulate things.
Yeah.
But I think it goes to like hubris in some ways. It's like we think we know what we're doing, so we're going to try to preserve, but at the same time, do we really know what we're doing? And there's been times where we tried to balance it out, and now extinct species overpopulated, and that's fine because we can then let it go back to the previous behavior. Yeah,
it's tough because we want to preserve the Earth.
But we don't know if everything should be preserved. That's the bigger question.
Yeah, we're getting better about it because now there was a conference like a year ago, something like that, on whether or not we should eradicate a certain species of mosquito, right, for yellow fever,
malaria.
Malaria, thank you. Yeah, and I don't know, did they reach a decision on that? And would you be confident that any decision they reached would be the right one? I mean, we seem to screw it up every time we try to change the delicately balanced ecosystem that's already in place.
Yeah.
But just being here, we're disrupting it.
That's right. Yeah. So then it's because that's, to me, that's the question, is like, how should we fix, the ecosystem, right? And
first, at least we're paying attention to it, right? That's the first step.
Yeah.
Keeping an eye on it. Do we have problems? At least asking the questions, and then after we identify a problem, you can at least work on solutions for that problem.
Yeah.
And then you can try to solve them and be like, oh, maybe that wasn't a problem. But only after experience with playing God are you going to get good at playing God.
That's right. And that's what we're trying to do here, is we're trying to play God and rewire our brains and move up our individual hierarchies.
Yeah, exactly. If God's the perfect being, and we want to start looking at the positive things in our world and get better at the hierarchies and transcend them all, we have to try to be more like God, right?
God the Son is the ideal, and God the Father is the judge, and the judge is our future selves looking back on us. Right?
Horus.
Isn't that the idea? Yeah, exactly.
I didn't care quite put it like that, but yeah.
I think that's how Peterson put it, or I don't know, but I was paraphrasing him. This is not my idea.
Well, it's a part of Peterson I hadn't explored yet, so you're bringing it to me. I'm supposed to give you full credit.
Yeah. It's in his biblical series now I think about it. So yeah, maybe it's different than this. But
yeah, it's hard to keep track of.
He talks about this in the chapter where he talks about listening to yourself, and the future is the judge of our present. And so if we live that way, that's God the Father, right?
And he's brought up the Horus stuff, which is the same thing, like the past father keeping an eye on.
Yeah.
So I know that in the later chapters, at least references Horus, but he also goes over Horus in more depth and maps of meaning, which I've seen a couple of the lectures.
Yeah, I want to get into maps of meaning.
It's hard to remember where you hear what Peterson from what. It's just gonna.
There's so much of him.
I guess if you do know, it doesn't hurt to say, but for other people looking for more information on him.
For more information, you can contact. Oh no, wait, that was later. All right, so anything else that you want to talk about from Rule 1? Where are we at time wise?
I think the having your shoulders back. We're about 10 minutes or 8 minutes. But I got it written down, so I can go back to this. I don't have to remember this.
Okay, good.
All right, so like keeping your shoulders back and head up. One of the things we talked about in the meet that I want to bring up that I think is worth iterating was like it advertises you as a leader. It tells others around you like, hey, look, I'm here to help type of thing. And I think that's good because if you help someone at the end of the day, it's like it makes you feel better, and it's hard to be depressed when you're helping others, I think. So I think the leadership's good. But we also talked about vulnerability too. By opening yourself up, you are telling others you can help them, and that can bring its own problems and challenges. But at the end of the day, it's about carrying the heaviest load you can, so that you don't want to carry too much and fail others, because that's horrible. Don't want to feel real bad. Do that. But if you can actually help them and deliver on it, that's better for them, better for you. So I really liked that part of the conversation we had on Thursday. And just trying to advertise yourself and trying to help others. It's almost like you said, it's like a positive feedback loop. By trying to improve the society you live in, you're hoping society's going to help improve you too. It's like a very, it's like an ecosystem or like a symbiotic relationship. So.
All right, cool. Well, speaking of which, that brings up, that reminds me of something that I kind of want to talk about, which is kind of a dirty word, but synergy, right? I think that's kind of what we're talking about a lot. This positive feedback loop. It's synergistic. It's synergy, and something I wanted to talk about kind of is like how synergy is. I think synergy is really hard. It's like probably the hardest thing. It's probably, if we were making a hierarchy of things that are difficult, synergy is up there, because you got to be like really working together as a group, And so I was thinking about hierarchies and creating hierarchies and how we can use hierarchies to kind of get into synergy, right? And get these feedback loops going. And because I think that we could, let me start there. I mean, like, I think that we could do it. I think that everything that Peterson talks about supports the idea of synergy, and I think that we could use the stuff in this book to create a means by which we get into synergy. You know what I mean? It's like when he talks about how if you imagine, if you play out a scenario in your mind before it actually happens, the world you create is better, and the avatar that you place there is wiser. Do you guys remember that part? He in the book he talked. Oh, which rule was it a part of? He was talking about. It's like an imagination. It's about being prepared. It's about preparing for a scenario before you go there. And when you go someplace, you're acting in the moment, right? But when you go there in your imagination before you get there, you can create a more complete reality, right? So the reality is more complete. So you can imagine more scenarios. But also when you do that, you're more in your high brain and not in your primal brain, right? So that avatar you place there is also wiser.
Well, I think there's you could probably try to pre-think of all the situations, but the bottom line is there's going to be chaos in it anyways. And so you need to develop reflexes, so to speak, and you need to live in that chaotic realm so you can feel comfortable when things also go wrong. Mm-hmm. It's good to have a bunch of things pre-planned of what you can possibly think ahead, but there's also something to said about having faith and maybe living in the moment too. I think those are both good concepts to really explore as a person, and I've seen when that gets unbalanced cause problems, so to speak.
So are you saying that? Are you saying that both are important?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
You got to have faith in the situation.
Yeah.
You can go with a game plan. It's good to have a game plan. It's better to have a game plan than not. But there are so many situations. Obviously, you can't have a solution for any possible situation. So you want to take a little bit of preparedness, and then you also want to kind of take a little bit of live in the moment. Mm-hmm. So you can practice that skill some more too, having faith and
it's a balance.
Having the Chinese symbol for chaos is the same one for opportunity. By allowing some chaos to happen, you might allow an opportunity to happen. Because even as if you come with a plan, your brain might refine that plan a little bit, but when it's in the moment too, it's completely different, and you might think of something you didn't think of before, so you might have to abort your plans.
So then what I'm saying is that in here we have a sort of laboratory, right? Where I think we can artificially create synergy, and I think by doing that, it'll make it easier for us to go out and create these synergies. I'm using synergy, I guess, for positive feedback loop, but to go out and create these synergies in our lives with other people. That's the idea that I'm having for tonight. I wanted to bring.
Yeah, I just think if you act like a leader, you want to help other people with their problems, that definitely helps the people around you, right?
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna be more likely to come to you if you look like you're not feeling down and slumped over and laid back, and it doesn't look like you're in a mode to really help out. You're kind of in a recoiled, I need a rest mode, right? I mean,
Right. So you think maybe if we were to, as a group, like work on each other's problems, then we could, like get synergy that way? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Well, I think, yeah, by all of us trying to be leaders, we can help each other be leaders, or as well as help each other with any problems we need. I think that's what, I hate using the term, safe space, but that's what we're trying to create here, is to get to know each other better, how to communicate with each other better. So when we do have an issue, it's like, hey, look, I read this thing in Peterson, I have this thing going on in life, I'm having trouble reconciling the two. I don't understand how this rule is supposed to be applying here, because it's obviously not true. What do you guys think? And you guys can take a look at that situation and be like, well, you're looking at it wrong because of this, and that way we take our perceptions and sharpen them against each other.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're saying we're doing that already. It's just happening, and let it happen organically. I'm
an organic guy. I like things grassroots and organic. That's just me, my thing. I like chaos, and I think I like developing my skill to be able to bring order out of chaos.
Okay, so I see what you're saying. So you're saying that, so you're saying that it's going to happen organically if we keep doing this and keep addressing the material.
Well, yeah, as long as we're being honest and we're exploring together, and we're exploring together with the best intentions, and we're here to help each other. As long as our shoulders are up and our heads up, and we're in that mode, I think we can. And as long as we remind ourselves to stay in that mode, and hopefully when I see Garrett's shoulders straight, and it reminds me, I have to do that too. So
even just as soon as you do that, I feel like
exactly.
I need to,
just now it turns into like it's like a feedback loop. All of us get straighter and straighter and taller and taller. By the end of the show, we'll all be like. So yeah, I do think it happens organically, but it doesn't help with all the planning we did beforehand either.
Do what?
This organic stuff doesn't happen without all the planning we did beforehand either.
Yeah. So then, is it organic, or is it a balance between organic and inorganic?
I think the balance is when you get a better product.
So then you don't believe in an organic approach. You believe in a balanced approach.
Sure.
Or I don't know. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, well, my preference probably should be more balanced, I guess, would be my comment. I think the other thing, too, is that how I would maybe structure some of the planning would be completely different than how you would structure some of the planning, too. And as us as a group, we're all trying to work together to figure out, okay, this is how he organized, that's how you kind of figure out our own communication format.
How would you structure the planning?
I don't know. Maybe I would take a swing at it first, and on a blank sheet of paper or on the computer, and lay out my thoughts, and then take a look at, have you guys review it and see what's right, what's wrong, what you like, what you don't like, what we take out, what we keep, and then keep iterating on it. But I'd maybe try to have a document that we could all have a copy of and make our own notes on it, and that we could, I guess we would just transfer it to the next version of the document. We'd all have to keep our own living copies of it, but the things we agree on, we'd have to produce the agreement document every week. Maybe that would be a thing, not like an agenda, but just the current understanding, a master document that. I made that one thing.
I jive with that. That's how I would do it. So you were wrong.
So yeah, it's a nice thing to learn.
Yeah.
See, my perception of you is completely different.
All right, cool. Well, I mean, I could go into this infinitely, so I don't know. Do you have any thoughts, or?
I think I'm good. I think actually where we left off leads pretty well into Rule 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Quite honestly, I think there's a lot that we touched on just now towards the end here that's going to serve us well for Rule 2.
Treat yourself?
Yeah. Well, it's about the balance of the chaos and order. Yeah.
Treat yourself as you would treat someone else. That was Rule 2.
Alright. Cool. Then I won't show you guys my vagina of infinity that corresponds with my idea.
You can't bring that up
that for next time.
Cliffhanger.
Alright. Cool. So, let's see here. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. We appreciated it. Love having you here. And, if you have any questions or comments, please be sure to send us an email or message us here on this. I guess we're still working that out as far as where you can get in touch with us, but check out the show notes for more information. Next week, we're going to be getting into rule number 2, as you might have heard Garrett preview. That's all from here, from Lobster Central. Until next time, remember that the fundamental moral question is not how to shelter children completely from misadventure and failure so they never experience any fear or pain, but how to maximize their learning so that useful knowledge may be gained with minimal cost. Thank you very much, and have a good life.
And then the main place to find information right now will be twitch.tv/Napa Jordan Peterson podcast. So we'll try to, as we develop the information about the show, we'll link it there and provide all that in that single place.
All right.